change, maybe longer, depending how many yellows we hit tonight, could find himself amongst amazing company, grabbing another championship, as Mike Stefanik still leads the all-time championship list with 7, Tony Hirschman with 5, but to be in the company of winning the 4th championship. We talked a lot about Justin, but you can never count out Ronnie Silk. He starts the deepest that he's started in the entire year. So starting from 13th is going to be a tall order. Again, he has to be all in tonight. And it's going to be interesting to see him come from the inside. That's one advantage that he might have, is actually starting on the inside for these rows.
Patrick Emmerling, the one car on screen. You see the black, blue, and orange number 1 on top of that roof. He'll start in the 10th position today. That's a machine that, he could have good runs here. He led laps last year, but in practice earlier today, at the very end, the engine expired. The crew had to go to a backup. They went out there in qualifying with no laps on that engine and were able to lay down a top 10 qualifying lap. We'll see if that car is good in race trim as they get going. He has he needs luck. He needs something to happen to Bonsignor. He needs something to happen to Ron Silk, and to have it happen early if he wants a shot at the championship today. Certainly everything favoring Justin Bonsignor at this point. Silk with an opportunity, but he's really got to go out here, win the race, and hope that Justin Bonsignor doesn't have a great night at Martinsville.
One thing about Justin and Ron we've seen all year long, they always find a way around each other. So let's just paint the picture for a second. What if Justin Bonsignor and Ron Silk end up next to each other in a race? Probably going to happen, as it does every single week. But what if they bump Nerf bars? What if they bump tires? What if they take each other out in the first 20 laps of this race? It's a possibility. Patrick Emmerling with his untested engine. Now, again, this was the engine. Well, the engine that blew this afternoon was the engine that carried him to those 3 wins, got him into the championship, got him to the dance. So starting from 10th position, it was good to have the backup as he does battle here tonight. But stranger things have happened. And the way that these two top competitors have treated each other this year on the racetrack, we can't say off the racetrack because they don't speak off the racetrack, but more on that as the show unfolds. I would not be a bit surprised to see these drivers mix it up a little bit here tonight, and don't count out Patrick Emmerling because he's ready to seize opportunity.
Speaking of Patrick Emmerling, let's go back down to pit road. Let's hear more with Jesse Punch.
Yeah, guys, this one team has already had a very eventful day here at Martinsville. They blew an engine early in practice. It took them 2 hours to get that engine changed, which sounds like a lot, but is incredibly quick when it comes to how much they were able to get done in that time. Barely got it out there to qualify, but managed to qualify 10th. I talked to Patrick. He said it does give us a little bit of a confidence boost, but at the end of the day, I'm just out here to push for a win. All he's focused on is getting that Martinsville clock.
Yeah, that team has been very, very strong in the second half of the season, Jesse. They have been fun to watch. I would expect Emmerling to have a pretty good run tonight. We'll see if he can rally up through that top 10 starting position. Speaking of starting positions, let's take a look at the starting lineup for tonight's Virginia is for Racing Lovers 200, the 16th and final race of the 2024 season. Justin Bonsignor on the pole position, 3-time series champion, going for his 4th tonight. Lines up alongside Luke Baldwin, making his 3rd start in the Whelen Modified Tour.
The 25-year-old starts in 3rd. That would be Jacob Lutz out of New York, with Austin Beers on the outside. Beers with 3 pole positions this year.
Row 3, the Monadnock winner, the 56 car of Trevor Catalano, having a great season in his rookie campaign alongside Craig Lutz, who sits 5th in the championship standings.
The 8-year-old race car goes next for car number 60. This is Matt Hirschman, already a winner this year. Big Money Matt starts next.
Carson Lofton, just 16 years old, will roll off in 8th. Kyle Bonsignor, he was a runner-up at New Hampshire Motor Speedway earlier this season. And Patrick Emmerling, one of those title contenders, rounding out the top 10.
The Cup winner in 2012, now behind the wheel of a modified. An amazing story here tonight for car number 8. That is Ryan Newman and Jake Crum making his first start in a NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour car. Car number 55 goes off in 12th.
Ron Silk starts 13th tonight. Tommy Catalano led laps last year here. He was newly married, got married last Saturday night. He'll start 14th.
The driver who comes into this race, number 10 in the point standings, Tyler Ripkema, will start next, followed by NASCAR Hall of Fame member and 2002 Cup winner Bobby Labonte.
Rolling off 17th, 9-time series winner Tim Conley, Tyler Catalano alongside. You go back to the next row, Joey Coulter, 2-time Southern Whelen Modified Tour champion Andy Seiss.
Then it's Ken Hagee in car number 18. Brian Doza goes next in car number 97, and rounding out the field is car number 24. That is Andrew Kraus, top 10 driver last year.
It started in the month of February at New Smyrna Speedway in Florida as part of NASCAR Speed Weeks. Tonight, it comes to conclusion in Martinsville, Virginia, just like it did at the end of the 1985 series season. Tonight, Justin Bonsignor, Ron Silk, and Patrick Emmerling go for not only a grandfather clock, but a championship, and we're ready to turn them loose here in Martinsville. Off turn number 4, the pace car is in, and down to the green flag, Justin Bonsignor leads the Whelen Modifieds into turn 1.
Shooting off of turn number 2 for the first time, Justin Bonsignor trying to lead lap number 1, which would give him an extra point and make it 7th or better, no matter what Ronnie Silk does tonight. Justin Bonsignor, all he has to do is finish 7th by leading that lap. He's up on top by 2 car lengths off of turn number 2 with Luke Baldwin charging.
Bonsignor just made it that much more difficult for Ron Silk as he takes over that race lead, leading lap 1. The next thing he'll target is trying to lead the most laps, but we've got to get deeper into the race to determine how that looks. You go back a little bit further, you see a great battle. The 56, the rookie driver, Trevor Catalano, the last night that he'll have that yellow bumper, he's going to the inside of another very talented driver. 16 years old, the Carson Lofton driver, number 23. He's a real talent, and he's inside the top 10.
We talk about the future of the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tours. Here comes Matt Hirschman taking a peek to the inside. A little too early for the PD Motorsports number 60. They'll go back into turn number 1 side by side, and pulling off the corner this time, it looks like Catalano, who was in his big brother's wedding last weekend. That's why the Catalano cars were not at North Wilkesboro. He drifts wide and now slows off of turn number 4.
Well off the pace, missed the corner, then went up the hill. That car coming to a crawl here along the front straightaway, pulls across the racetrack. Problems for Catalano. Now he's got it fired up once again. His car is rolling, but he's well behind the pack, and the caution flag is out for the first time tonight. You saw Catalano when he got down into turn number 3. The car just darted up the racetrack, seemed to lose fire, nearly coming to a stop here along the front straightaway before he was able to get that car rolling once again.
What kind of summer did you have? There is Trevor Catalano, who won his first NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour event at the Monadnock Speedway, put him up in the standings for the NASCAR Whelen Short Track Cup, which was won by Patrick Emmerling this year. It was a special championship within the championship for races based at Monadnock Speedway, and Emmerling went in and just took it in the final of 3 races. Let's look at the replay here. Going into turn number 3, he has a car link that just drifts wide, seemed to miss the corner.
Car was pretty stable throughout that, and then it came to a quick stop here. It was rolling slow before he was able to get that fired. He's got it down on pit road. Tough break for this team because they had qualified well. He started the race today in the 5th position, was running in 6th the time when this incident happened, and now he brings that 56 car down to the attention of the crew. But had a great conversation with Trevor Catalano earlier in the day today. Just started college recently, studying mechanical engineering with the hopes that that would aid the efforts on this team. And he said, in fact, it had his brother Tommy Catalano looked at a lot of data as a mechanical engineer and applied it to their race program. And he said that was one of the reasons why we got so much better. And they've got 2 of those Catalano modifieds in the top 10 of the championship standings. They've been very proud of their efforts. And to run 3 cars at this level at a series like this in the Whelen Modified Tour, that's significant for the accomplishment of this entire Catalano family team.
Back in February, when they rolled those 3 cars into New Smyrna, everybody thought, again, it was going to be tough. It was going to be a feat, but would they be able to complete the entire year? Yes, they did, with the exception, of course, of the wedding, which was, of course, it's a wedding. It's scheduled months, years in advance. And the North Wilkesboro race wasn't supposed to run on that day, originally scheduled for a few weeks earlier, but due to the remnants of Hurricane Helene and North Wilkesboro being a drop-off area where the region had rallied and donated a number of items that would bring a lot of things to the Speedway, including some of the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour competitors. You saw Ron Silk's hauler completely full of goods to bring down from the Northeast and coming together as one big family. Racers helping racers in their region. But That's the reason why the race wasn't run a few weeks ago. The Catalanos were ready to race that day, but due to the fact that there was a wedding on a rescheduled date, the wedding had to stay. But I wonder if the Catalanos had their way. They tried to get here, but not everybody was on board with that.
It was a long drive from Western New York to North Wilkesboro Speedway, and they could not quite make it work, but they had a great time, we're told, at the wedding, and now they're back here to race. Trevor Catalano was on and off pit road one more time. They have now sent him back around. He tried to stay on the lead lap, but he will rejoin at the tail end of the field as the field rolls into turn 3, getting set for the restart here. It'll be lap 9 when they come across the start-finish line. The front row looks the same. Justin Bonsignor on the inside, the 7 New York of Luke Baldwin to his outside as they come through the Geico restart system.
Greg Lott's slow to get up through the gears. He gathers it back up and sails it back into turn number 2. He'll be in sole possession of third, but what a run of steam by the black car, number 46 down the back straightaway. He'll go after Luke Baldwin into turn number 3. It's still Bonsignor not surrendering the lead by about now a full car length off of 4.
Bonsignor will complete the pass as they come up onto the front straightaway. Single file among the top 3, and then you got Jake Lutz sitting there in 4th as he was able to break free in that battle a little further back. There's Bonsignor leading Baldwin, Lutz, and here's a battle now for 5th. Here's Austin Beers working to the inside of Matt Hirschman. These two neighbors on Mud Lane in Northampton, Pennsylvania. They go toe-to-toe for the 5th spot.
Now, Austin Beers running strong at the beginning of the race is nothing new, but talking to him this afternoon, he said the one thing that our team really needs to get better on in 2025, when we look at our data, when we just talk things over after the race, is the second half of the race. Sometimes it's the driver. They've had a few pit miscommunications, which have regulated him back a little bit. I think he surprised a lot of people a couple of years ago when he was up there challenging for wins and picking up those first wins. And you don't want to say that the driver had an off year, but I think we expected a little bit more out of the 64 team this year.
A year ago, the challenge for them was on pit road with the pit stops. They got that cleaned up over the winter. They went to work and got better. Meanwhile, trouble. The 54 of Tommy Catalano has knocked the left front off of his car. Tim Conley, the Mystic Missile 4, into the outside wall as well. Both wheels pointed to the right on that car, and already Tommy Catalano taking the gloves off. He is done, it looks like, for the night. At least they'll have to go ahead and pull that car back to the pit area. He had started a little deeper in the field, I think, than he had hoped here tonight, and that certainly did not aid in his efforts here early on after starting back in the 14th position.
And that's the risk you run when you're in the back of the pack. We've seen that happen a few times in crucial parts of the season with our championship contenders. You have Patrick Emmerling. When you look at his stats for 2024, they're amazing, with the exception of one race, and it was that one race that actually took him out. And you take that race away, and Patrick Emmerling is within a handful of points of the championship. Let's watch the replay here.
Yeah, we'll get a look at this. You can see that Tommy Catalano was not happy with somebody, and it looked like he got a lot of help there. Who was that behind here? Was it the 3 car of Ripkema, possibly?
That might be Ripkema.
Just out of frame, so just kind of guessing because that was the next car that came across. But, boy, he is hot under the collar. You don't see Tommy Catalano get too fired up.
No.
And he was certainly fired up there. And for good reason. He does well at these large racetracks. This is a track that he led laps in this race last year. There you see Tyler Ripkema in the 3 car. Reason to be upset for sure.
Yeah, and you know, he is a very cool and calm, collected person. And talking to his new wife on the this afternoon, we asked if he did get nervous around the wedding ceremony and what he had to plan, and she said no, he was just as cool as always. Oh, except for the time that he read his vows very quickly. That was it. It was the one time that he had something scripted, because when you're in the moment and you're getting married, it's a wonderful thing. But for Tommy Catalano and that beautiful wedding last week, he did speed up the words a little bit, and she was quick to point that out. But Catalano, and they got married to Hey Little Girl, or Hey Pretty Girl by Kip Moore. And that was a song that was playing when they first started dating. And I said, you guys are kind of young. I mean, that's an older song. And they've been together that long. So 2012.
So there you go.
And I think that's pretty neat. I always ask people what they got married to. I find that to be, I don't know, just an interesting footnote, because usually one side of the couple, it's great when they're both there, because one feels like Fred Flintstone and Mr. Slate's office. They just, because they forget. They don't know. And you know that I'm 2 seconds from putting you on the spot.
You know, you sound like a radio DJ. You
Right.
know all the songs, you know all the hits. It's good.
Yeah, well, that's what I do when I'm, not doing this. And that was a great deflection, Joe.
Wasn't that good?
That was a great deflection.
It was a Jason Mraz song. By the
Yeah.
way.
Oh, it was? Was it I'm Yours?
Yes.
Beautiful song.
Yep, very good. All right,
Yeah.
so back to racing, because I think that's why you tuned in today. There's Tim Conley. He's getting his car pushed back on pit lane. We saw Patrick Emmerling on pit road. He got some fuel, and that's going to be interesting here to see if that is the pit stop they need to gain some track position when everybody else comes down midway through the race to get tires and fuel. And so we'll keep an eye on that. Emmerling on pit road under the second caution of the night to get some fuel. They have since towed the Catalano machine back to the garage area, and Tim Conley, his car sits paused in his pit stall on pit road as the field has been given the 1-to-go signal. We'll be 18 laps in the Virginia's for Racing Lovers 200 here at the Martinsville Speedway, the series finale for the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour. And Justin Bonsignor so far has checked every box here this weekend. He has led every lap to this point in the race.
If he picks up the lap leader award, that is another extra point. So no matter what Ron Silk does, all Justin would have to do would be finish 8th in this race, which seems like a pretty easy task, but things can change in an instant here at Martinsville Speedway with Luke Baldwin on the outside in the 7 New York. Here we go off of turn number 4.
Green flag
in the
flies
end.
from atop the flag stand. We're off and running one more time. And boy, Luke Baldwin has done a nice job at the outside of the restarts here at Martinsville, but the inside lane is preferred. Can't keep the throttle down as they hit the back straightaway. Justin Bonsignor trying to clear as they head for turn 3.
Just out of your screen is Matt Hirschman in car number 60. He was trapped on the high side, very quickly moved down low. He's going to go to the inside of Jake Crum as they work their way back into turn number 1. And now a little bumper tag going on further on back. There's Kyle Bonsignor that gets involved in. What about Ronnie Silk? We haven't talked about Silk that much in the first 19 laps of this race. He started in 13th. He's moved up just a little bit, but not nearly enough.
He's up to 9th with that pass over Jake Crum, so he's moving forward, but he's got work to do. This is a long race, and as we have seen in the past, a lot of things can happen. So Ron Silk and that team is going to need to rely on all that experience to be able to be in the mix for the championship at the end of the day. There is the 16 for Ron Silk. 1.5 seconds behind the race leader, Justin Bonsignor, 9th on the racetrack. He's picked up 4 since we dropped the green flag.
Yeah, my mistake on that, the number 14 would not be that driver. That's actually Jacob Lutz driving the car number 14 down the back straightaway. Rides in 5th, a nice solid run. But pulling in front of him is Austin Beers in the number 16, who runs really well on these flat surfaces, picking up a win near his home in Lancaster earlier this year. Number 64 looking to close this year out big. They already have plans ahead for 2025.
Absolutely. It's been a little bit of a running joke as to what their contract looks like, but he said he will be back with the 64 team. And he's been a bright spot in the Whelen Modified Tour. New young talent coming in, has a lot of potential for him. That win in Lancaster earlier this season, and he documented earlier it wasn't the pit stops that were a problem, but they just have a hard time getting the adjustment right where they gain speed in the second half of the race. And he said if we can get that adjustment right at the midpoint of these races, we'll be competitive at the end. Right now having a pretty solid run so far inside the top 5 and really looking like Austin Beers did a year ago, where he was inside the front half of the top 5 or top 10, not in the back half of the top 10, and that's been their struggle throughout 2024.
A lot of that has to do with the fact that he has been on the pole so many times over the last couple of years, even this year with 3 pole positions. But to your point, trying to stay to the front has been a bit of a task. Another driver right in front of him, how about Craig Lutz in car number 46? Put together a really nice race at North Wilkesboro, but much like some of their other races this season, it wasn't a full race. And the team knows that too. They have a ton of speed, they have a lot of talent in Craig, and they just by their own admission say, we need to put a full race together. And I think once they do, they are going to be a top 5 team for 2025. I love the speed of that 46. He's right there with the leaders, and he's holding off Austin Beers going into turn number 1.
And that's really been the difference. Those 2 drivers, Austin Beers 4th in points, 5th in points for Craig Lutz. And that difference of being able to put the full race together, all 16 races, is really the difference between them and the top 3 running for the championship of Bonsignor, Silk, and Emmerling. If those 2 drivers can get that figured out, you're going to have more names in the mix among that title hunt. And they've been good all season long. The question is what does it look like as the race goes on? Craig Lutz, that 46 car, you can't say enough about how good they are on the big tracks. Every time you roll in to Thompson. They led a ton of laps at New Smyrna, the season opener earlier this season, and it's no surprise to see him running third here in the early stages. We'll see how it plays out as the race goes on. Now, we've been talking about the battles a little bit deeper in the field. The battle up front has been pretty intense. We've seen that battle of Justin Bonsignor. Luke Baldwin has been keeping him honest as the race goes on. And there's been pretty good battles all throughout the field so far. There you see the top two, only about a car length between Bonsignor and Luke Baldwin in that 7 York.
Luke Baldwin rides in spot number 2. As you mentioned, a couple of car links off the back bumper, and talking to his dad, Tommy Baldwin Jr., who obviously has been around the upper echelon of NASCAR for decades, and his name runs in the family as well. And you know, the tradition started with his father, Tom Baldwin. I asked him if there was anybody that Luke reminds him of as far as drivers that he's worked with. He says, you know, really a lot of them, he's got it. And as long as he has it, he's going to be good. He's his own race car driver, but the one driver that he singled out was Ryan Blaney. And ever since he said that, I haven't been able to think differently about that. He runs very much like Ryan Blaney, and Tommy Baldwin has had experience with him, of course, over the years, too. So that when you watch him run smooth, he's obviously got a very fast race car, but he's not burning up his tires. And Ryan Blaney, while he's not the youngest driver out there now and former Cup champion, he, you know, he was wise beyond his years when he was running the Pro All-Star Series as a teenager, running the Truck Series as a teenager. He was a driver with, he might have been 18 years old, but he had a 35-year-old soul, and I see a lot of that in Luke Baldwin, too. The night that he won the Smart Modified Championship, just 1 week ago, I asked him how he celebrated. He said, we didn't. We had another race to do, and it was North Wilkesboro last Sunday. He said, I got 7 hours sleep last night, and I'm ready to run here today. And I'm not running to win. If the opportunity comes up to win, I'm going to go for it. But I'm here to earn respect. And we're talking about North Wilkesboro last Sunday. He certainly did a lot of that. Ran in the top 5 for a good chunk of the race. And now he's going after Justin Bonsignor. He closed the gap down to 2 car lengths that time in turn number 3.
And he's a driver that I think we're going to see more of in 2025 and has aspirations of moving up into the higher levels of NASCAR. Of course, his dad is a competition director at Rick Ware Racing, former Daytona 500 champion as a crew chief. Tommy Baldwin, and of course the third-generation racer here, Tiger Tom Baldwin. We talked about that before the green flag flew. He's got the pedigree of the Baldwin family, the experience, the modifieds. I mean, he grew up around this style of racing, and he's a driver that I think is going to have a lot of talent that we'll keep an eye on as the years go on. So great battle up here at the front. We continue to monitor the Justin Bonsignor and Luke Baldwin battle. Let's take a look at Ron Silk, though. We've been keeping an eye on him. He's sitting in the 9th position. He hasn't moved further forward. Look at the car that's behind him, though. That is Ryan Newman driving that 8 car for John Michael Chanette. He is riding there in 10th. Newman, who won here in Martinsville, the NASCAR Cup Series back in 2012, and has got a handful of Whelen Modified Tour victories to his credit.
And one of the hardest guys to pass. He earned that reputation throughout his Cup career, but watching him at North Wilkesboro Speedway last week, he's still one of the toughest guys to pass. Doesn't matter what kind of car he's driving. And both of those drivers are closing in on the car in front of them, the red car that's just out of your screen right now. That's Lofton in car number 23.
There's a kid who's really mature, too, and he said, you know, last time they came out, he's had a couple of races this season, both inside the top 10, both 9th place finishes that he has had here in the 2024 season. Carson Lofton, unbelievable driver at just 16 years of age. He has proven that he belongs here in modified competition, sitting there in the 8th spot. And, you know, he runs a lot of the Smart Modified series that's down here in the South. But these cars are a little different from the tire setup, and you can't just combine those notes from one to the next and have a lot of result. But he said, you know what, with our car, it worked. What we ran on Saturday at North Wilkesboro worked on Sunday at North Wilkesboro, and we continue to take that approach as we continue to grow our program and run more and more of these NASCAR races.
You know, this is NASCAR's oldest division, and we talk a lot about the heritage of this class, whether it's the 7 New York or the Mystic Missile of Tim Connolly carrying on the Bob Gambarino tradition. Justin Bonsignor tying Reggie Ruggiero on Sunday with 44 wins. The future of the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour is so rich when you have drivers like Lofton in car number 23. You also have Trevor Catalano picking up a win earlier this year. And so many young drivers are really starting to make their mark as they have this year, whether they stay regional racers or they aspire to grow into the top 3 national series. You know, you can be watching, as you're watching on FloRacing here tonight, you can be watching a handful of stars that you will see racing on Sundays for Cup wins and Cup championships. And then on the other side, you have, I wouldn't say lifers, but you have Ron Silk, who has 26 wins in this division. 2 championships spread over a couple of decades. He comes into this race with a shot at the 3rd. Right behind him, though, look at that battle. Tyler Ripkema is going to go down to the inside of Ryan Newman and rattling Ryan Newman's cage. Not the smartest thing to do, and there's more contact, a bit of retaliation. Good rubbing off in turn number 2, but it's still Old Blue. Tyler Ripkema in car number 3, inheriting the driving duties from Jake Johnson about 2 or 3 races ago. They've actually, this is their 5th race. They've had 2 really good events, and they've had 2 races where they missed it. And talking about 2025, that's still up in the air. But I think Tyler Ripkema and his family have found a home with this number 3 car.
It's been interesting to see how quickly they have taken to this 3 car. He's had great results now. His 5th start with his team, already 2 top 5s. It's his 70th career start tonight for Tyler Ripkema, still looking for that very first victory, and you'd have to believe that getting in that 3 car is going to give him a great opportunity to do it. His dad and he are businessmen up in Western New York. They said, we just didn't have the time to dedicate to running our own program. This was a perfect match for us to be able to show up, bring our expertise, match that with the Bowler family, Scott Richards, Greg Fournier, the entire group that operate this program to be able to align. He said, you know what, we let them make the decisions, we come prepared and ready to race, and so far it's worked out pretty well for Tyler Ripkema and the 3 camp in the Bowler Racing family.
Continuing the tradition of a car that, or at least a paint scheme that's been run by Bug Stevens. We talked about some of the other drivers that have been behind the wheel, like a Jake Johnson or a Donnie Leah over the years. Seems like no matter who gets behind the wheel of that car, they don't just pick anybody to drive that car. You know, they had the Narducci kid run a little earlier as well, Brian Narducci. He ran solidly in that on the bigger track over at Richmond Speedway last year. So, but, you know, one thing that you really love to see is you love to see a team and an owner find each other. And earlier this season, it appeared that Jake Johnson had found a home in car number 3, and they picked up that win at Monadnock Speedway. And, you know, the icon, well, I would say iconic, but the very famous
trouble down
photo.
In turn 3, 1 car, I believe it's Tyler Catalano, has expired the engine. That car now coming to a stop over here in turn number 4. And Catalano has got a whole bunch of steam and smoke coming out from underneath the hood of that machine.
The honeymoon is over, even though he wasn't the one that did get married. It was all of those guys having a very, very, very hard night. But Catalano getting out of the race car in a hurry. So here we are on lap number 53. Justin Bonsignor has led it since the drop of the green flag. Luke Baldwin has run second for pretty much the entire race. But I think this is going to be a very interesting restart where you have Craig Lutz, who was lights out great in the last restart. So car 46 will be on the inside, and Luke Baldwin's been able to, while he's been strong on the outside, he has quickly found his way behind the 51 after just a couple of laps. He's not going to have that opportunity because I think Craig Lutz is ready to lead this race and make a statement and put together a full race in that number 46 that they desperately want.
So the 3rd caution of the evening comes out here. We're now 54 laps into the Virginia is for Racing Lovers 200 here at Martinsville. We'll come back with more. It's the series championship race for the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour to wrap up the 2024 season. Stay with us.